Welcome. Welcome to another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. I'm Brad Chandler, and there's going to be only one guest today, and that's myself. I'm going to host the show. I've done a couple of these since we first started, some 83 episodes in, and I just figured it was time to do another one. So back in, I don't know how many months ago, episode 52, I put together a list of the top 25 lessons that I've learned in my first 50 years of life. I turned 50 last year, and we made it through 8 last time. And I've been meaning to do this for months, and just the timing wasn't right. But anyway, now the timing's perfect. So I'm going to go through, hopefully, the additional lessons. If we get through them all, great. If not, I'll do another episode. So you guys buckle in. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. In a couple minutes, I'm going to share with you an amazing tool that can help you change so many things, including your relationships in your life. So as we always do, let's jump right in. And that is rule number 9, or I should say lesson, not a rule, is every problem in your life comes down to a thinking problem. So whatever negative behavior you have, you eat too much, you drink too much, you have depression, anxiety, you're scared to get on stage, you're scared to dance or speak in front of other people. Every negative behavior you have that you can't stop. Number 1, it's not your fault. And number 2, it's your mind's way of creating what it thinks is a solution to a more painful problem. Because remember, our mind has the job of moving us from pain to pleasure, right? So that we can survive. So let me give you an example. Getting on stage creates anxiety for you. Well, that anxiety is protecting you from getting up on stage and making a mistake that could lead to ridicule and judgment, just like your father did to you as a child. If I mess up, I will be ridiculed and judged, so I don't want to go through the pain, so I live with the anxiety. Does that make sense? Your body is doing exactly what it should be doing. So many people want to label these things disorders. It's not a disorder at all to have anxiety when you're getting on stage. Not if you were ridiculed by your father as a child and you are fearful that someone might ridicule you just like that. Because as a child, this is going to get really deep, you have 2 primary needs, attachment and to be your authentic self. So if you make your dad make fun of you because of your actions, you potentially lose that attachment. If you lose the attachment, your 6 million year old brain says, ooh, there could be danger here. So that's all it is. It's protecting you from danger. So you can put lots of things in here. You could put social anxiety in here, right? I can't go across the room and speak to a stranger, or I want to date a girl, but man, I show up to these bars or fitness centers and I can't talk to them. I get so anxious. That could be caused by this underlying belief that I'm telling you, that you're afraid of being judged, right? And that anxiety could cause you to drink to overcome the anxiety. So now you've got 2 negative things, neither of which are your fault. And how do you solve that? You go back to that underlying thing. Would I be ridiculed if I got up on stage and made a mistake now? Most likely not. And so we just want to show the brain that. We want to show the brain other times in your life where you have gotten on stage or you've spoken out and you didn't get ridiculed. And then your brain's going to throw up this thing called a mismatch detector. And it's going to be like, ding, 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 ding. Wait, that's not the truth. And when your brain believes that, you're actually overriding the old neural pathways with the new ones. And guess what? When you do that, the negative behavior that you've tried to stop for years is gone. We could throw overeating in there, same exact premise. And we'll come back to that in a second. So that's lesson 9. Number 10, some people have no idea they lack self-love, but it's affecting every area of your life. I was one of those people for 47 years. I was the guy who said, I don't care what other people think of me. I have a high self-esteem. It wasn't true. I showed it from the outside to protect myself, but I didn't feel it. And did it affect every area of my life? Yes. And if you lack self-love, I promise you it's affecting your relationships, your health, your business, your children, everything. So if you're curious where you fall on the self-love spectrum, just go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz. Take 2 minutes and 45 seconds to answer 12 questions, and you'll know what your level of self-love is. And if it's one of the lower tiers, lack of self-love or mild self-love, don't say, woe is me. Just the opposite. Think, oh my gosh, my life can get so much better because when I figured it out, oh my gosh, my life has gotten so much better over these last 3 years. So, what are some questions on that self love quiz? Hopefully, you'll find out. But talking negatively to yourself is one sign that you lack self love. Stop talking negatively to yourself. It doesn't do you any good. Do you know that your mind doesn't know the difference between when you chastise it and say negative things or a complete stranger? Guess what? It releases cortisol. What does cortisol do? It's an inflammatory. What causes most disease? Inflammation. So please, please stop talking negatively to yourself. You see, some of you can see my shirt. It says, be your own best friend. If you wouldn't say it to your friend, don't say it to yourself. Another question on there, self-destructive behavior and addiction. Do you do things that are self-destructive? Do you have an addiction? That's a huge sign of lack of self-love. Again, not your fault. This is all just behaviors trying to protect yourself from something, from some pain that's hidden, likely from childhood. And another question, we're just going to touch on a couple of questions. Another question is relationships. Do you find it difficult to be in intimate relationships where you're trusting and you feel secure? If the answer is no, that's another sign that you lack self-love. Again, not your fault, but when you lack self-love, you almost always matched someone as an intimate partner, at least, with the same level of trauma that you had. So if you lack self-love, you're probably finding other people that lack self-love. And then what happens is you have two people that are fighting for their worth. I've done it way too many times in my life. So I know what it's like. So if you want to go take the quiz, go to unlocklimitlessyou.com and take the quiz. Okay, we're rolling. Lesson 11, questioning every emotion and behavior that you have is one of the best ways to heal old wounds. Try to stay in curiosity rather than judgment. I heard something on a podcast this morning in the sauna. How can you judge another human being when you don't understand their level of suffering? That is so true. I've gone, and I'm not perfect, but I've gone from judging people, which I used to do a lot. And when you judge other people, you're really judging yourself. And I've swung the pendulum to compassion, because when people are acting out, they're just calling for love. They're hurt and they're suffering. So you can do the same thing. Be curious. Why am I drinking tonight? Why is what my wife just said, why did it trigger me? Why do my kids trigger me? Why is my employee not showing up? Instead of placing judgment, just get curious. That's what Albert Einstein said, is just be curious. That's how he's like, that's how I got to where I was. I wasn't that smart. I was just really curious. So here's the tool that I was going to share with you guys. It's called the Joy Regenerator. It's a tool I put together a couple years ago, and you can grab it at unlocklimitlessyou.com/joy, completely free. And this is a way to help you stay in curiosity. When you find yourself having a negative emotion, you are in a fight or flight state, which means you're not present. Your mind's taking you back to a time when someone or some situation caused you a certain feeling, and you're bringing that feeling into the event or the situation that you're in right now. When you argue with your wife, your kids, it has nothing to do with the actual situation at hand. It has all to do with how you feel about yourself based on years ago. So essentially, you revert back to your 6-year-old self, not in terms of maturity, but just brain functioning. You're remembering things that the 6-year-old mind created because your subconscious mind doesn't know the time. So when you're in this fight with your spouse, just think of yourself as two 6-year-old kids like barking at each other. When you can do that sometimes and make light of it, you can release whatever the silly argument is, because they usually are silly. So here's what you do. When you feel that negative emotion, you're in that fight or flight. So you want to get to the present state. So you do some breathing. Take a deep breath in, hold it for 4 or 5 seconds, blow it out for 4 or 5 seconds, hold it for 4 or 5 seconds. And then you want to identify the emotion. Well, what is it that I'm feeling? I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. And then you want to give yourself compassion for that emotion, because most of us didn't get compassion for our emotions as a child. Be your best friend. No one can love you like you can. So if you're feeling anxious before getting on stage, instead of beating yourself up like I used to, just say, it's okay, you're feeling anxious, because it's that little 6-year-old inside yourself that's feeling anxious. So you've given yourself compassion, And now you can start to think of 3 things that you're grateful for about the situation. And if you live in the United States, I mean, there's 1,000 things we can be grateful for, right? And then you want to figure out, where did it come from? Well, that's one of the things that we do here at Unlock Limitless You, is we help you figure out what are the source of these emotions and these limiting beliefs that are driving my negative behavior. But I can promise you, from me, it always goes back to my childhood of feeling not enough. So then I ask myself, what was the thought that created the emotion? Because remember, thoughts creates emotions, that creates behaviors, and those behaviors often reinforce those thoughts. So for me, every time I feel a negative emotion, it goes back to me not feeling enough. And I say, is that true? No, it's not true. I'm more than enough. So why am I going to stay in a negative state, sad, depressed, frustrated, whatever it is, based on a thought that's not even true? You don't have to either. So if you want to grab that, again, unlocklimitlessyou.com/joy. That single tool will change your relationships if you use it. Just anytime you feel negative, pull it out. It's a Google Doc. It's like a journal, and it's an amazing thing for you to reflect on. All right. Lesson 12. Life is really beautiful. You just have to look around. Be present. There's beauty everywhere. Stop watching the news. I stopped watching the news 3 years ago. One of the better decisions I ever made in my life. Studies show that there's a higher rate of depression and anxiety among people that watch the news. Why? It's 90% negative. Negative, negative. That's how they draw you in. So you're going to release cortisol. You go to bed at night watching the news like I used to, your subconscious mind now is programmed with negative thoughts. You wake up watching the news like I used to, now your whole day is programmed with negative thoughts. So stop watching the news, and as you do more of this work and start to become more like your best friend, you're going to see things in a different light. You're going to see the universe in a different light, and you'll see that life is really beautiful. 13, everyone is just a soul looking for love. Fear drives you. Fear drives us. The underlying subconscious belief that we're talking about that are driving these negative behaviors almost always lead back to the fear of not being enough, or the fear of not being loved. So look, you can't suffer if you live in the truth. And the truth is, you are worthy of love. So if you can just believe that and get rid of the fear that you're not lovable and you're not worthy of love, because of something that happened to you years ago, again, not your fault, you're just trying to protect yourself, things become a lot better, a lot clearer. All right, 14, lesson 14. When people call for love or call for love or show you love, which is almost every situation you encounter another human being, they're going to either call for love, which means they need love, or they're going to show you love. Someone's cussing you out on the freeway, that's a call for love. Your spouse, your child puts their arm around you, hugs you, says, I love you. That's obviously a show of love. Now, you as a human being get to respond in one of 2 ways. You get to respond in love, or you get to respond in fear or ego. It's your choice. If you pick love towards yourself and others, joy will ensue, I promise you. So if you take nothing out of this other than this one thing, start asking yourself, is the person that I'm dealing with, are they calling for love? Are they showing me love? And then ask yourself, how are you going to respond? And then once you respond, ask yourself, did I just respond in love or fear and ego? And if you ever have a question, I promise you it's fear and ego, because you're going to know 100% of the time when you respond in love. 15, lesson 15. We create issues in our children from our unresolved issues that most of us aren't even aware of. I'm talking about me. I'm probably talking about you too. I have been a single dad for 12 years. I did everything for my kids, but yet my kids had anxiety and had issues because of the way that I felt about myself. And I didn't even know it. Remember earlier I told you that I lacked self-love and didn't even know it? Well, I was a great father. I never hit my kids. I'm there every morning, get them off to school. I'm home for dinner 9.9 times out of 10. I took them around the country for golf tournaments, volleyball practices and games, whatever it is. But yet my subconscious belief of not being enough drove them in ways that I didn't even know. So if your kids have issues, before you take them to a psychologist or a therapist or a coach, look at yourself. Go take my self-love quiz. If you lack self-love and your kids have behavioral issues or anxiety or depression, there's a good chance You're the cause of it. Notice I didn't say it's your fault, but you're the cause of it. And as you begin to heal and find love for yourself, I promise you, your relationship and their behavior is going to change. I've done it myself, and I've seen it with countless clients. Number 16, it's best just to let the universe do its thing and not worry about it. Think about this, guys. There are stars in this universe that are trillions of miles away. So the things that we think are really big really aren't. We're just this tiny little speck, right, in this universe. So many things in this universe happen perfectly. For instance, the level of oxygen, if it was off by I think 0.5% or something very, very minute, we'd all be dead. The sun comes up every day and it warms. It gives us the sunlight we need to grow the plants, to give us the oxygen. Like, man, everything in this world, as Ram Dass said, is perfect. Just let it be. Don't try to fight it. One of the keys to happiness is let each situation be as it is rather than you think it should be. And you'll start seeing a difference if you can do that. Number 17, the only thing that is limiting you is you. Not your job, your commute, your weight, your spouse, your bank account, the weather, where you live. No. You're limiting yourself by the thoughts. And if you're just jumping in here, go and listen to the beginning part. Those thoughts that are buried in your subconscious mind were likely created in childhood, and they're there just to protect you. And once you figure out what those thoughts are and reverse those thoughts by telling yourself a different story, the true story, you become limitless. It doesn't matter where you are in your life or what you're going through. You are limitless despite what you may think or despite what others may have led you to believe as a child. You're limitless. That's why we now name the company Limitless You. All right. 18, you don't have to suffer through life. Do you know that most suffering on this planet is self-inflicted? And how is it self-inflicted? It's self-inflicted through our thoughts. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. If I'm my true self, if I'm my authentic self, people won't love me. I can never get that job. I'm going to stick at this menial job because my mom or dad told me I'd never amount to anything. It's all a bunch of bull. You are limitless. And no matter what you're suffering with right now or through, as Winston Churchill said, when you're in hell, just keep going. It's going to get better. And you don't have to suffer through life. Life was meant to be joyful, abundant, fruitful. It's meant to have you with a partner who you are, in love with, can't wait to get home to talk about your day. That's what life is about. It's not about suffering. 19, weight control is more about how you think about yourself than diet and exercise. And again, you may not be overweight thinking, hey, I'm a terrible person, but nor did I. Weight wasn't one of the things I struggle with, but I struggle with a lot of other things. And I never woke up and said, hey, I'm no good. I certainly, used to say a lot how dumb I was and I wasn't intelligent. But weight, I see billions of years or billions of dollars spent per year on diet and exercise programs, right? And how many of you know someone who has lost a bunch of weight only to put it right back on and sometimes even more? Usually now I congratulate people when I hear that because I really am proud of them. But the second question I ask is, did you figure out what caused you to put the weight on in the first place? This goes right back to one of the first lessons that I spoke about on this podcast episode. And that is, eating is just another negative behavior that is protecting you from something that you think is worse. So I'm no good, I'm not enough, no one's going to love me, forces me to eat because now I feel a little bit better. If I'm sad, why not have, a couple Dunkin' Donuts or one of my favorites, a big piece of cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory, right? But that's why people are overweight. There's a lot of reasons people are overweight. I get that. There's hormone issues. I know I've seen countless case studies where women who were sexually abused as children. Actually, it's the reason that there's a study called the ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and it talks about how it's a scale from 0 to 10. 10 being the absolute worst. Like that means you had all 10 childhood traumas. They correlate, the higher the number, the more rate of obesity, heart attack. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. That study was started because a weight loss doctor in California was having this incredible success, and all these women were leaving the program. And he went and spoke with them, and he was like, "Why are you leaving?" And most of their reasons were, "If I lose weight, I might be a target of attack again." So again, another issue, another example of a negative behavior that's driven by this underlying thought that we think is more painful, but it really isn't. It's just an untruth that we told ourselves, because as an adult, you're safe. You create your own safety. Number 20, sleep issues are an issue of the mind. Clear your mind and you'll sleep great. I can't tell you how many clients I've had that are like, "I have a racing mind, I can't sleep." And I give them the first meditation, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've started to sleep." So you don't need sleeping pills. If you're not sleeping, it has to do most likely, again, there's other issues. I know hormonal issues and whatnot, but in general, most issues around sleep are the issue of the mind. So just figure out what's bothering you. Figure out that underlying belief that you're running from, and you should be able to sleep great. 21, the three things that caused most people's issues in their life are: 1, feeling of not enough; 2, thinking they can't get what they want; and 3, they don't belong and therefore can't connect. Those are taken from Marissa Peer, which is she's one of my was one of my mentors, a fabulous lady. So feeling of not enough, let's go through these. I mean, there's 1,000 reasons someone could not feel enough, but you weren't born that way. So it was probably something that happened to you as a child, and you protected yourself, because as children, you always internalize bad things. So if my dad's hitting me or making fun of me, if it's my dad's fault, I'm screwed. I can't control that. But if it's my fault, I'm being hit and made fun of because I'm bad. All I have to do is be good, and then my dad will stop hitting me and love me. So I'm the problem, right? That's how we as children internalize it. If you had a lot of fighting in your family, same thing. But it's not true, right? It was never about me. And as an adult, now I can see that. Thinking that they can't get what they want. Again, I said earlier, you're limitless. You can get whatever you want once you clear out these limiting beliefs that are buried in your subconscious mind. And third, they don't belong and therefore can't connect. So as kids, we always want to be like one of the others, right? But adults, we want to stand out. So just know that you're unique. You were put here for a massive mission, and there's nothing stopping you. You're limitless. 22, I mentioned this earlier. You weren't born with any of the issues that you have now. Whether you have depression, anxiety, you have an eating disorder, you have OCD, you're a workaholic, whatever, you're mean, you don't like affection. None of that. You weren't born with any of that. They were all learned. And if you learn those, you can therefore unlearn them, right? Isn't that a beautiful thing? Absolutely beautiful. Okay, 23, true freedom can only be found through self-love. I started a real estate training company about 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it was called Brad Chandler Coaching, and coaching you to freedom was a tagline. I thought that you got freedom through money. I was wrong. Why was I wrong? And not most, but a lot of entrepreneurs start businesses thinking that once I have $1 million or $10 million or whatever your number is, I'm going to be worthy and I'm going to find happiness. But it's not true. Look at all the people with hundreds of millions of dollars that have taken their lives, that are dead from drug overdoses. True freedom can only be found through self-love. And if you think you're going to start a business and make a bunch of money and you're going to be happy, it's just not going to happen. What you want to do is you want to figure out how to become happy today. And then the chances of you making the money go up astronomically when you're happy, because money doesn't bring happiness. Happiness brings money. They've proven that. They literally have done studies where they looked at college graduates and their happiness level and then looked at their income level 10, 15 years later. So if you want to truly be free, just learn to love yourself. And everything we're talking about today will help that. Number 24, nothing else in life really matters than love for others and yourself. So think about it. When you're lying on your deathbed, like you are, like I am, what are we going to be worried about? What are we going to be thinking about? We're going to be thinking about, what were the relationships like with the people who were closest to me in my life? And what impact did I make? You were put here for a massive mission. You may not know it because you may have these underlying beliefs that are keeping you in this fight or flight state, and you've got the proverbial lion chasing you, but you were put here for a massive mission, and you'll figure it out. If we can help you, let us know. So love is more important than anything. And finally, the way that I end all of my videos on a daily basis is love heals all. It really does heal all, because the fear of lack of love and lack of not being enough literally drives most of our problems. So I hope that was helpful. Again, the 2 tools, if you want to download them, if you want to download the Joy Regenerator, which can change your relationship, go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/joy. I would highly urge you, go take the quiz right now if you haven't, the self-love quiz, to see where you stand. And that's at unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz. I'm on a mission to help 1 million people radically change their lives and find the freedom and joy and love that they deserve. So if you like this podcast, please share it, like it, rate it, review it, whatever you can do. And if you want to hear the first episode of this, just go to episode 52, where I started this 2-part segment and series. And until next time, as I always do, love heals all.